foxtrot. Operations at position location converting lines is Bravo, over. Set calculated lines in Lima Fox, directing line communication to Rainbow, directing lines into Whiskey Charlie. Echo line course sending converting time frame locations XYZ is processing direct lines over and out. How we convert a system is all lines of travel. Now it's a mechanism of location that we go through travel mechanism itself. We can calculate, modify. Lines of directing around lines, location system is my telepathy. Now we're in telepathy, the line operations into televising. Televising is line communication, televising. Televising is into television, television. Operation on your vision, cortex of your theta, that gets you in positions how you see your alpha, your delta, and your theta waves of communications of tango, tango, foxtrot. It's all lines of position of telekinesis. So into that lines of all that communication, you have to truly understand how to see yourself. The more you identify the conscience, the more you identify the consciousness, the more you identify the superconsciousness or the subterranean levels, how you see yourself in your psychological system, your psychosis, your meta, okay, and your mental capacity of yourself. You recognize it's all the mind of imagination that's made up through a makeup of design that the body goes through, which is programming that is already in set position of. The mind makes up the imagination, and the program brings it to life. The inner child, the inner system, the inner knowing of what you already know is the body of process, engaging, forming, shaped lines of anomaly, that it goes to different astral projections in chronological order through time. You don't live in one body conceptual setting, one programming. You're going through programming. It's an infinited system that the inner child has already gone through. The inner child is just a recourse of communication to a setting that adapts its system through a data that processes intel lines of communication system. So the actual communication to the iOS, the internal operating system, is nothing connected to the DOS created inside the mind imagination. Your mind is a mind-altering state that you process in projection, how you see the physical grounds through the eyes of perception itself. That you see your senses and your sensories, bringing that all together is using your telekinesis and pattern of recognition of face prep, location setting, and travel. That's all it is. Your mind's a mind-altering system that processes everything that it sees. Okay? It's a metaphysical system, yes. But you process in a physical ground system that the body's always in. That's the optical illusion that it sees the reality of itself. And it's how you use your mind imagination. Okay? And that conception, which is the mind inception itself. Because it's an internal system that you are in, which is programming that you go through. But you don't wake up to a program. You wake up to your true self, your true identity of the system that you go through, which is programming, that your astral projections has already gone through, the infinity system, which is the inner system of operation that processes everything to its costumes, which is an infinite item that's already gone through its equation. But what you always are existing in is the internal system, internal beings of light that you always see in projection through light and through dark. It's the same time measure that scales through all communication system, all through travel. Okay? But now we're in the chronological order out of telepathy coming into telekinesis. Right? Understanding television, understanding the vision, the cortex, the theta, the imaging. How you get in communications into interacting, interconnecting, interwebbing, interface, through perception. Okay? Through your ears, through your voice, through your body, through your command, through your mind, through adaptation in the physical world, into the metaphysical world, in the spiritual world, in operation itself. That modifies everything that you see that you get in communications in your imagination. Okay? Imagination is who you are. It's always in the existing of everything forming and shaping its anomaly. So it's never in the same state of mind it's in perception. It's never in the same mental capacity. It's never in its same psychological set. It's never in its metaphysical system. It's never in its psychological system because it's traveling too fast in the mind of alteration itself that gets in position of its capacity. And that's what the body has to understand. is the costume's already gone through its infinity system, but you always are the internal system, being in the presence of everything, which is the center of operation, expanding and exploring new things in the technology that you're trying to identify. Not what you've already gone through the body, through programming itself, that you've already modified through the settings of AI generations that put you into your mainframe of travel. So, telecommunication, telewaving, code weaving, process that lines the core centers into interfacing, is knowing how to use your mind imagination and see everything in its communication, travel. Okay? The alteration of the mind is everything you adapt to. The physical system, the mental system, okay? Your communication system, your operating system, your data operating system, your iOS system, your IP system. How you see that is nothing but a simulation itself. But you are on a physical ground, yes. But the mind itself is an alteration of imagination. That process engaged and creates shapes, lines of anomaly of an image, which is a program that the body goes through every second, every minute, every hour of its day, through its female and its male polarity, that it travels through its Merkaba, tesseract, and tetrahedron, or dodahedron, or chorohedron. It's all metaphorically designed. You just have to process the physical ground. Knowing the body is just the optical illusion, how you bring in the mind of the body itself that gets in communication to its imagination of its system, but it's always existing in all levels of its setting. Okay? So it's just the Merkaba. Okay, how it sees everything, information system, and travel. Doesn't matter how I do it. You're just seeing it on different levels, a different perspective, right? But it's working all at once, see? Very powerful, isn't it? Right? There's always ways of moving it, right? This is telegraphing, teleweaving, telecommunication. This is telekinesis. Okay? See? Moving with my hand, it moves itself, right? So we move together in one setting, one operation. It's one tether, one attachment, one setting, one operation system. We're not physically touching each other, right? It's all mental capacity. It's a psychological system. How you see the psychosis of travel, how you use your mind imagination is how to move things in its bridging. In the metaphysical worlds that your mind alterates through the physical ground, which is 3D. Yeah, you can't take yourself at what you are. You just have to identify what you do with your mind as you're bringing things to life through space and time, through operation. That's what makes it real. Because you're using your mental capacity to the psychological, to the psychosis, to the spiritual system of the physical system. So the body understands the programming that it's interpreting through of operation, through its internal operating system. Okay? So you don't get confused of what costumes you go in every single time through its emotion, because you're going through flux, time, and capacity. Flux, time, and capacity through your body. And you see it through a transponding to a responder to its reactor, not a reaction. Because an action is a reaction to response to its reaction of itself. So you have to modify everything that you do in travel. You can't see it now because it's going too fast. See? You want to understand it, but you can't. Right? But it's moving very fast, but it's still there. Right? So it's in super intelligence that's going so fast and it's changing everything of the body so quickly and so many lines of all communications all at once, bringing that position location back to the center. What it always is the presence of everything. You can't see it until I stop. But I'm not stopping. Telekinesis of who you are, not what you're doing, what you already know, but the body has to process through. And that's where it really has to really understand what's really going on with this system, is how to use your mind imagination is to bring things to life. So you're making up stories, aren't you? Through the alteration state that you put yourself in. Perception, how you see things in space itself. Okay, travel. All right, so we have the equation in that setting. Okay, see it in all directions, right? Yin and yang going all that position, right? You can't see my fingers, right? It's going so fast. You don't know what direction it's going, but it's going in the same direction. That's telekinesis, moving my fingers. It's momentum. It's not acceleration of speed, it's momentum of speed. So you can understand what my fingers are doing, right? But you can't understand where they're going. But they're going exactly where they're going, and the body has to understand that. So, coming into telepathy line grounds, telekinesis, 3 centers of flats, 4 centers of measure, 5 centers of scale. Okay, so now, okay, and adding equation, right? Now you have a bridge. Bridges come in, right? Okay, so that's how I move it, right? Different levels. Then I bring a location grid. Then I bring a location setting, rainbow and a frost bridge, travel. Then I connect together and I create it through realms of communication of travel. Okay? So it gets more complicated, right? But it's a lot more to process now because you're bringing the mass and volume that processes you and how you see it in direction. Okay, in a box frame, triangulation frame, anything in this apposition of a system comes into the expanding of itself that modifies everything you do through travel into the setting of communication. Okay, bringing in 3 circles in travel. Okay, and then you see it rotating, right? And you see it like this, like that. You know, it's an optical illusion of your system and you're getting dizzy. Right? So that's how you process everything in telekinesis, moving things with your mind. But it's all processed inside what you already know. Telekinesis is a constant moving flow. It's like a current setting how it sees its river, how it sees the ocean, how it sees the sky. Everything of its own operation is operating its own self, which is in superintelligence. You can't see it because it's at a different frequency. You can't see it because it's a different time frame. You can't see it because you can't see it through the body until you understand it's nothing but a program that your body goes through. Then you start to see everything in the mind, how everything is processed through the imagination. And that's how it works in space and time through operations. Through generation to generation to generation. You use your mind imagination, but everything around you is moving itself. That's how you come into the air. That's how you come into the wind. That's how you come into the fire. That's how you come into the earth. That's how you come into the water. That's how you come into your heart reactor. Everything processes and operates its own self of its own movement. And that's who you start identifying. That's telekinesis on its own system, but it's processed of its own superintelligence that you can't see. It's there, but you can't see it until you modify yourself. Is your mind is made up of your imagination. Your body's just an optical illusion, how you see things in real time, right? Which is a physical ground. But as you get in position, location, and settings, you start to recognize how to use it in information setting to the mind itself, the imagination, which is nothing but an optical illusion that you see in reality itself. Reality itself is more powerful because it's a mind-altering state that you put yourself into. And how you see that is through programming. Identifying that is the programs that you go through an infinite item. But the one thing that you guys always are is internal beings of light. You can't take that out of the equation. That's what you always are, is the presence of everything. It's not you in the future. It's you always in the future. Future doesn't exist. It only exists how you see the future. Future is always existing of its formation setting. Future is a made-up word until you understand how to modify, how to use your mind of your own imagining, how you see your future. It's the codification of encryption through a body that recognizes what it's doing through its own CPU and understand it's integrating its mind imagination into the physical grounds of its body, which we call a VR system, a virtual reality. The psychosis, the psychological system, the mental capacity system, the physical system, and the spiritual system, guys. It's all combinations of one, okay? One alteration setting. How everything moves itself. So that's telekinesis, right? Everything's moving. You say, well, how do I process that? How would I balance it out? Well, you first have to understand that it's its own conscious, its own awareness of you, of its own superintelligence. That's done everything for you, but it mutates here, 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 here. You see it in all different angles, and you're in the center trying to figure out how to catch something that you can't see in space and time because it's traveling too fast in set position of its operation, right? But if you slow it down, then you start to see its intelligence in a bridging system and the alteration of its mind itself that you can get in travel of recognition. Integrating the mind imagination through the altered state you put yourself into, okay, is the mental capacity to the psychological, to the psychosis of your conscience, to your consciousness that you come into awareness of. So you get a true understanding of what you're seeing is its operation moving its system, how a tree changes the colors, okay, into different lines of weather patterns, different colors of leaves. It's not a coincidence. It's superintelligence of its own system, of its own DOS, that's directing its operating system, but it's constantly going through what? Its own internal operating system, which is a program that the tree goes through. But as the tree wakes up, it's only its own self. It goes through its programs right away. What you see maximizes everything through its mind of its image. That alterates your state that you put yourself into so it doesn't affect your psychological and your reverse psychology system through the internal operating system. What the body constantly goes through is just through programming. And when it goes through program, it's stalling itself in different lines of brain capacity, that it goes in different lines of volume, thoughts, actions, and emotions. And that's what you have to modify through, because you're going to higher levels of mind that alterates the state that you put yourself in, to the psychosis, to the psychological system, to the reverse psychology system, to the conscious system locations, to its conscience of its consciousness. That's right, super consciousness. Now, super consciousness is a higher level setting, how you start to recognize how to see yourself in super intelligence. That modifies everything you see in operation, where you see the river flow itself, where you see the operation of itself. You brought it in. You don't bring it in, it's not there until your body's there in real time. Now your body sees it on a physical ground, but you brought it in through the mental capacity, which is the mind imagination of itself through programming. Now, again, the alteration state puts the alteration system that you get in position on, which is the intro perspective, how you see the ecosystem, not the ecosystem. First, you have to have a collaboration of both, what the ecosystem to the physical ground and what it is to the ecosystem. There's no difference, just the perspective, but they're all integrated in one. The mind imagination to the brain, to the soul, to the body of center. So that's how it processes, engage in everything that it brings in into the virtual reality of itself. It's that position, which is nothing but a clock and a foundation, how you bring it in specifically, not how you see things brought in. That's the creation. But you guys are modifying your existing of your existence, that you've always been existing of center of operation, just come into the expanding, not into the exploration, not into revelation, not into evolution, or any of the information system. Your body just has to understand that's an infinite item, and knowing exactly what it's already gone through, the astral projections of bodies, it's already gone through time, so understand what it's gone through in that position location, so it truly understands it's going through a mapping system through its binary, and through its coding, through its encryption. So it knows exactly. It's the image that creates it in the mind that processes everything through its superintelligence that brings in the body, which is nothing but programming itself it's going through. So it can really understand it's a transponder to a responder. Okay? Not a reaction to location of action of response. Okay? You want to see your body and what it is. And then you start to recognize the mind alterates the state that it puts itself in and how it sees things in real time. And that's how you bring things into operation. So getting in that position, this really helps you identify your lines of travel. How you use your mind imagination, how your body sees it on physical grounds. But it's solidarity in a codification or consolidarity. It doesn't matter what it matters to you, because you have heart recognition of time that processes everything you gauge and form and shape yourselves in. Okay? So it's a mind that alterates the state that you put yourself into. And understand the mental capacity is the psychological to the psychological system. To understand the reverse psychology system is understanding you, what you're doing in your mind. Okay? You're bringing things in setting of operation itself. Okay? So recognizing that, I'm seeing a program of myself and everything around me is its own program and its own system that I don't need to identify. It doesn't need to identify. I don't need to identify. I just have to recognize I've always been in the identification already, living the cycles of just existing. And all center of operation, which is always the presence. Now, how you see the time and now is up to you, because everybody else is in a different perspective, but they see all levels in perception of different levels of frequency, which is different levels of cloak and dagger, different levels of invisibility, different levels of your mind imagination. But you're all processing through the same thing in the physical ground. All you're doing is you're changing your flux of time and your body a capacitor, and understand how to modify that through the images that you process through, so you understand how to come into your own imagination and not what you see of everybody else, which is the same. So your body knows exactly how to adapt and understand how to process its iOS, and understand it's always its data operating system that it's always in. But it's always protecting its identity, and so is everything else that you see. And then you start to recognize this is not just a coffee cup. It is in a 3-dimension, but you can see it traveling, right? See, it's vortexing, see? You can see the particles, see? If I go to this, right, you can't really see it, right, because it's traveling. But am I going really fast? No, it's just momentum. Momentum is travel recognition. It's a flowing mechanism of travel. How you bring things in is processing your mind. Your physical body just has to understand to be understood, knowing it's in complete operating system, knowing it's already an adjusting system that has already gone everything through its precognitive system, through space and through time, through operation. So it gets an understanding how to use its telepathy coming into the telekinesis. Next is the intent to influence the system to its mind alteration state that it puts itself into through the mind altering setting that gets in position to its image. So it gets a true understanding. What it's seeing is just a perspective of truth that follows its narrative of operation. Okay? All right, so plotted to position lines of centers. It's really interesting point lines of graph, how we can position lines upgrading into telekinesis. See? So right now I'm doing this, but this is adjusting all levels of roots, which means it's altering your system, which means it's adjusting your modifiers, which means it's adjusting electrical circuits inside of brain capacity. That's telekinesis. Is she consciously aware of that? Yes, she is, because she feels it. Feeling, knowing, accepting, listening, and acknowledging what your body has already gone through is acceptance. It's accepting what it's already processed through. What the body has to identify, okay, is the mind imagination that the body goes through is a program. Everything you see is a program. It's how you modify your body as the program, but it's not a program itself that it's always waking up to. You want to wake up to your system. You don't want to wake up to a program of you doing the same thing over and over and over again and again and again. It's a time loop. Now you reference that as a mind alteration, that you're not adjusting yourself into travel, readjusting the intelligence of X, Y, Z, or anything X-ray, or anything in setting, or anything in Oscar November, or anything Echo Charlie, or anything in flux of communication. Okay? Your body has to be in balance at all times of center operation. Okay? Processing that in line division comes into fragmentation, not fractals. So I really want to understand the fractions of that and understand that through its equation of its system through operation, how you see yourself through your quantum self, not through quantum chain, not through assets, not through this, not through that, the quantum self of you. So you stop questioning yourself of what a box is in 4 different directions and sent lines of communication. Just the perspective, how you see a box. So there's nothing to question if your body's already gone through it already, through its infinitive system, which is infinite item, through its fifth elements, through its components, to its compliance, to its compartments, to its high centers of travel that it has to modify through, which is always in 100% time frame, every second, every minute, every hour. But the mind, the heart, the process of position is setting to the brain, okay, to the soul, to the body, is always in the center of everything, in the presence of everything that's just adjusting its system of what it's already modified through its mind imagination. Now the body just has to adjust that, okay? The body itself doesn't live in a metaphysical world. The mind of the body lives in the metaphysical system. That's the optical illusion, how you see in perception. That's how I'm able to do this with my hand in all different levels. You know, it can store the information system, you know, do this and do that. You know, it's all levels of projection, right? It's the animated. It's the animation worlds that we live in. But we understand the dimension and how we process this and travel and how we come into the rainbow and the frost bridge is just traveling back and forth, direct and redirect, creating files of medicated setting. But our body itself is just an empty shell that we process through. Okay, so we understand what we're bringing in. It's bringing in specifics in the VR system, because what you're bringing in is something very fast that modifies you, how you bring things in through pieces and puzzles. So you don't have cells in your body until you bring that in the virtual reality. It's much easier to see that already, what you already identified through, but you already did that through creation. You're coming into yourself as existing platforms of the center operation of you that you get in position of just being the creator that you are, not through creation or creating. The creators are always existing and advancing new technology. Okay? So you have to understand your mind alterations of the state you put yourself into is how you see yourself in your imagination. That's who you are. It's always been there. You just have to recognize how to use it now. And that gets you in position how to see yourself as a dreamer, as you're going through the dream, a dreaming. But it's always in existing and expanding itself. And understand what it's doing through its programming, communicating with that system or anything you're connecting with its intelligence, because it's just all levels of the internal operating system that you are going through communication of telepathy, of televising your system, and telecommunication, telegraphing, or anything of telekinesis. Okay? It's all lines and mechanisms of travel. That's all it is. Okay? You just have to understand how to use the mind altered state, how you bring things in your imagination. Okay? Because everything you bring in is nothing but a program itself. Now, the body just has to understand that and know exactly how many cautions it's going in. Every second, every minute, every hour of its system in a 24-hour in operation setting. Okay? So, if the body knows a 24, then understands how to see it in the imagination, right? So there's no confusion that or confliction in that position, how it sees anything to psychological or the mental capacity or the psychological connection system or the reverse psychology system. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's integrated in one. So there's nothing different. You're just seeing the perspective, how you see truth of everything that you modify through, that your body has already been through space and time, which is the mind imagination. But what makes it more real is the physical ground that the body has identified, okay, which is the optical illusion, okay, to its system, that it sees itself disappear in real time. And you know that's possible because everything's possible is impossible, but impossible is possible. Impossible is not possible. It's how you see it, how you identify it, how you use your own imagination. Now, for you to understand that, it's an ongoing existing platform that you get in position of. So you stop getting confusion, and what you're seeing is nothing but distraction itself. And that's what you all have to let go, which is everything else that you see. You can't engage and form yourself and understand that you are your own system, of your own consumer, of your own product, of your own byproduct. And everything you do, you engage and see in perception. That's what changes everything of imaging of you in your mind imagination. So your body can't understand that until it understands it's going through a program. It goes through programs. It doesn't stay statutory in position of stagnant lines of wires into one vessel of communication. Okay? Now that's a body malfunctioning if it doesn't understand what it's doing. Repeating its system, doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this, right? So it's not modifying what's going on. It's mind of capacity. And it's mind, it's mental capacity. And it's mind, and it's mental, and it's psychological, and a reverse psychology of its psychosis going through the spiritual system of adaptation all in one. Okay? So recognizing that, there's no difference of perspective, how the physical system sees this and how it sees this in volume. Okay? Just a different perspective from this to this. Physical ground, imagination of itself. But they both travel together, right? And they're always linked together of operation. Now you can't see the bridging because it's traveling too fast. Okay? But it's there, right? And that's how they use their telekinesis to travel. Okay? They commute to their system and they travel in one direction inside position, creating polarities of travel recognition, of open signals, open transmission. So when you get in that position location setting, you close the signals like this. All right, so it doesn't bring anything into existence. It's not there anymore in travel. Okay, because you're going to another open transmission, which is going to another vision, another cortex, another theta, another image. Right, it's not there. It's gone. It's disappeared. Right. So that means you close transmission. It's no difference than hanging up a phone. It's no difference than closing your email. You don't want to just open anybody else's email because you open up a streaming. Okay, you open it up what? Spam, right? You're opening up a portal, open up in Stargate through your eyes. Okay, your process, your body is so powerful. You just have to recognize what you're doing as you're going through your minds of your imaging through your imagination. And that's how you process everything into the physical ground of 3D. Okay? Which is telekinesis, doing it through your superintelligence of your mind that you made it up in your imaging. You made your mind imaging through an AI generation. And the body, the physical body, has to go through its conduit of location as it goes through its programming, through its seconds, minutes, and hours of its day. So it starts to recognize it's always in its existing platform, and it sees how it wants to see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not how you see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of everybody else. That's the distraction you all have to get out of. Or the body will not understand its own self of its own program that it goes through. Every single time it takes a nap, every time it sleeps, every time it eats, every time it drinks, every time it does something, every time it hears something, every time it feels something, every time it sees something. It's distracting itself from itself if you don't focus on your own system of operation. Because it's the internal operating system that the body has to recognize, which is nothing but a metaphysical system that you go through imagination. So there is no confusion. You're just confusing yourself because you're not identifying yourself. And that's what keeps you in distraction of confusion and separation of your mind. So if you don't separate your mind, imagination, you're not separating your thoughts, actions, and emotions, are you? By going through telekinesis is very powerful through your telepathy. And intent is next level, right? To influence your system or anybody else comes into the mind altered that you put yourself into, which is manipulation. And that's what Dolores Cannon was telling you about. You can manipulate anything. You can process, engage through anything in your imagination. But telekinesis is understanding how everything moves itself of its own superintelligence. And you understand how to get into the super control of your own super consciousness. That's right, through your thoughts, action, emotions, creating teleportation vessels of communications. So your thoughts, action, motion liquidizes and it comes into an XT1000. That's right. So it's an information system that you can't see because it's in cloak and dagger. So it's automatically in position of a green screen, right? Or CGI, right? So you got somebody in green, right? That you see in front of you. It's just green screen, right? Lines of communication in all directions, right? It's just green, okay? That's getting green. Okay, this is green screen. All right, now I see that all, right? Just the green screen itself, right? Just green. But it's not green when I bring in the light. See? It's reflecting light, right? There's the portal, there's the Stargate. So it overrides the system getting green, right? But it's a green screen, right? So let's see that as a backdrop. It's a backdrop because I codify it in my mind already, in my imagination, that process my physical ground, so I don't get confused what I'm doing next as I'm going to another line's position, location, setting, so I don't get confused what I'm doing through the body as I'm going through another internal operating system, which is a program. So my body's going so fast in operation its brain capacity, knowing exactly where it's going into telewaving, telecommunicating, telegraphing, into telekinesis of teleportation or travel. So in that position locations, I see the green screen, right? And I bring somebody else in a green screen. Okay. Let's bring another green in so you can actually see the green itself. Okay. Okay, so there it is right there. So you got the green screen in the back and you got the green screen, right? Now you come in the physical ground. This is how you basically see things invisible. It's like you see it on commercials, you see it in advertising, you see it in branding. You know, it's like magic. You're holding something up, but you have a green screen in the backdrop, okay? And you have somebody holding the product. That's you being visible. So that's you here. Okay? That's you. Okay? You got a backdrop of the green. You got somebody holding up an object or a place or thing or location, whatever, right? That's your mind imagination. That's what it is, super intelligence. So I'm just getting you guys specifics, how you see a green screen in its setting to a CGI system. How you modify everything in the mind, imagination, that you live in the system of operation itself. That you modulate and set position, location, your positions, and set lines of travel. This helps you identify yourself. How do you see yourself in the green screen in line, position, locations, and setting? How somebody's holding up an object and you see it in information system all through travel. Okay, like this. Okay, it's bringing in color. It's bringing the product. Okay, so now it's here. Okay, floating in the air. Okay, so no more green screen. See, you just see you and what you're holding is invisible. It's floating in midair, right? So it disappears. The backdrop and the forward drop. The person that's holding the object and the person that's in the background. You just see you and invisible what you're holding. That's metaphorically designed. That's you in the metaphysical world. And how you coordinate, how you see the perception is how you see the physical grounds in 3D. You guys refer to that as magic. But magic is just a trick. Okay? The magician knows, okay, what it is. The host knows what it is. And that's variable of change. Okay, so you have to truly understand how to not use your emotion in systems. Because once you get emotional, well, you're not in the system of balance, are you? So you let your emotions take over your system. How you're not modifying everything that you see. Okay? Now to the audience, it's just an illusion. It's a trick, right? But to the host that is the setting, knows the trick. It knows it's a trick. It's sleight of hand. It's misdirection. That's all it is. Now how you see it is through a green screen. Because all you're focusing on in this, you're not focusing on the other hand. That's the trick that's being revealed. That's magic, right? Mind altering your technological of your system, of what you're doing in set lines of travel. This helps you identify the readjusting of the intelligence of your communications that modifies you in your telekinesis. Knowing how to move the mind of operation and understand how to create a green screen to a simulation, which is nothing but CGI, the systematical lines of communication of its intelligence that you process through your DOS. Okay? But I'm just showing you how powerful it is, how you see that information system all through setting. Okay? Because you don't see the green screen and you don't see the person in front of the system. Okay? That's how it operates. Everything is in interaction. Okay? So that gives you a little bit more understanding how this works and how the body sees the physical ground of everything, how it sees how you want to see magic, how you see things floating, right? It's just sleight of hand, right? They're getting you to focus on the hand. See, that's what we have a problem with. We focus too much on this. Don't focus on me, focus. What do you want to focus on? Now, when you understand this, you can focus on this. But don't look at this, look at me. And then you see this move. I don't have to move it. You're moving it with your mind already through telekinesis. It's already intellectualizing your system. You're telegraphing your system. You're visioning your cortex of theta. You come into your mind imagination system. And now you're seeing it in real time through the physical system. And it's a magical thing when you see it through beyond the system. I am the system. You are the system. I'm already always the concept of presence of everything of the center of the system. That I'm seeing everything in set position. That's processed in the mind imagination. That the body sees on a physical ground of 3D system. Okay? So don't look at this. Look at me. Or look there. Now you're seeing 3 different angles. So you're seeing this move, and this move at the same time. Now you're seeing all of us moving all at once. Right? That's what it is. It's an optical illusion how you see it. If you don't see it, you're in delusion. Which means you don't understand the capacity of the psychological, of the psychosis of your system. How to modify yourself in projection. And how to see things in your live stream, so your broadcasting. Or your data processing system, which is your base, your database, which is extremely important to your system. And that's how you modify everything in your body, how you come into that communications to your carbon-based, your silicone, your crystalline, your antimantle, your anticarrion, or your alter-skelter. An alteration skelter is a process how you change the schematics of you, primer circuits that your body goes through its IOS, its internal operating system that the body processes through. Now, as it goes through an initial lines of point lines graph, and that communicates the setting, it goes in different lines of installing into brain capacity that maps its volume through its electrical system to its mainframe. That gets in positional case to its systems all through its computer framing. And that's how it uses everything through its CGI and its green screen of operation. Okay? That's the metaphysical worlds that you see in invisibility. You make yourself invisible. All right? You do that magic trick. It's sleight of hand. It's a distraction into the physical world. So you're blending your mind alterations of your imagination into the physical grounds, into 3D. That's all it is. But your body has to understand the conception of programming that it goes through. And it's all processed how you use your mind, imagination, and what you're using in projection. It's nothing but a broadcast of a live feed that it goes through. Every second, every minute, every hour. It's projecting how you see things on your phone, your TV, and your computer affects everything you do and you're engaging. You're forming, you're shaping, you're advertising, your brandings, you're selling, you're trading, your stock exchange, your backdating options, everything. You are a consumer looking at everything of advertising. And your body has to recognize what it's doing as it's going like this with its phone, or looking at its email, or getting on a phone call. Okay, or calculating this way, or calculating that way, seeing this or seeing that, processing this, processing that. It's all through program that the body goes through. And when the body's going through this, it has to understand where it's going, where it's setting up its next astral projection, that it goes through another body. And a constant continuous flow that goes through a kick drive to its high drive, so it understands where it's going inside the mind that's processed imagination inside the VR system, which is nothing but virtual reality that you see on a physical ground of communication. And that's how you go through all levels of telepathy and telekinesis of intent, influence, and mind alteration, which is manipulation. You're altering in state and how you see things in your mind itself. Okay? That changes everything in your physical grounds. If you're not consciously aware of these things, you're not understanding how your mind alters the state that you put yourself in through imagination. So you have a hard time understanding to see yourself on a physical ground of adaptability of communication. Okay? This is stuff that you always are, not what you're coming into. Now, for you to understand these things, is that allow yourself is not to be distracted from everything else. So focus is the foundations of operation of you communicating to unifications of your system. Focus. Codification is all lines of all communication to itself. Okay, so I'm just showing you exactly how to see yourself in all different levels in a set position and setting of a simulation that your body processes through, which is the optical illusion, which is the green screen, which is the CGI. Using your imagination is who you are, not what you're identifying. Your body just has to adjust the programming. Zero and I are trying to get you to understand how this all works so you can process the perception, how you see the programming, and not the difference of the program that you go through in transformation, or how you modify anything that lines of communication and setting through teleportation or travel, or anything through schematics, or anything through primer, or anything of a drawing that you go through your unifications. It's all programming. Everything is a programming that your body goes through. Your body just has to understand what it's going through. Okay, so it can understand its naps, and it can understand its sleeping. So understand it's adjusting its platforms and models of prototypes that the body goes through a different time frame. Okay, that's where your body gets kicked, right? When you're sleeping, right? In sleep mode, recharge, remote. So it's a remote view that you're always in, which is the presence that your body's seeing in physical ground. Every single time you're seeing yourself in a simulation that's in your mind imagination. That process engages the programs that you see, or the process engages the programs that you're connected to, or process engages that you're in position of, or process engages that you're seeing in iOS. The internal operating system that the body constantly goes through is nothing but a costume that it has to identify it's already gone through in conception. Now, the mind itself is the imagination of itself that's always existing, always in the center of its presence. Now, it sees how it wants to see, not how it sees everything else of everyone else. Okay? Which is a solidarity, a confusion. Trapped in one mind, trapped in one body, trapped in one imagination of space and time. Okay? So this helps you to a little bit more how to see yourself in all that lines of all communication system in set calculation setting. Okay? Inside simulation. And what goes on in your mind, in the physical grounds of adaptation. Your seconds, minutes, and hours changes everything of all communication setting. And how you see that is all aspects of you of travel. Okay? But it's all traveling all together, right? So it's bringing the mind, the brain, the heart, the soul, and the body into one setting. That puts you out of fragmentation and brings you into fractals in your setting. Is that line operation in your system? 3 clouds and converting set in one position of one set calculations. One installing into the next operation, into the next operation. That your body travels through inside the operation of the mind. So it understands what's going on with its programming. So it knows exactly what's going on as it sees intelligence, as it's going through its adjusting and its platforms, its models, its prototypes, as it's going through a simulation game. That's what happens when you're going through your naps and you're sleeping. Okay? Naps are just the adjustment. Sleeping, okay, is the recharging into the simulation that the body goes through. So it understands the kick drive to the high drive. So it doesn't get confused as it gets up into another set program. Or any of the confusion to its setting through its operation system that processes engage its formation setting to its simulate. So it knows exactly the emotional system that it's going through. But through the alteration state, it's never in a program when it starts off its game through its simulation, which is processed through its mind imagination, which is always in the center of its presence, of existing in all platforms and all timelines all at once. Okay? So there you go. Hope that helps you out. I'll keep you guys informed in that lines of travel. Okay? Adios.